Have you ever wondered why the Palestine cause has convinced so many people? Why is it that so many people believe the notion that Israel is the foreign occupier? Even when Israel's always the one that says, well, we're prepared to make peace, we want to come to the table, let's do two-state solutions. And the other side say, no, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, no compromise. And yet the world seems to show, or at least the people that go out onto the streets, the elite institutions, certainly of the Western world, they seem to sympathize with and have a lot of time for the Palestinian side. I know there are many people that are pro-Israel and waking up and all of that, but what is it that has seduced so many people into believing the Palestinian cause? I'd like to propose to you one of many reasons, because I know this issue goes very, very deep into the very destiny of the world and the age-old issue of anti-Semitism. But one thing that I think we should think about psychologically is this. This is a really fascinating story that comes from the Bible that teaches us some profound wisdom. And I think it sheds light on what's happening today and why so many people buy into the Palestinian narrative and what we can do differently. The Torah tells us, let's just get this up, about a fascinating incident with King Solomon. This is in the book of Kings, 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 16. Listen to this story. Then came 2 women, harlots, to the king and stood before him. This King Solomon, they're coming before him. And the one woman said, "O my lord, I and this woman dwell in one house, and I gave birth to a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the 3rd day after I had given birth that this woman gave birth also, and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, besides us 2 in the house. And this woman's son died at night, because she had lain on him. And she arose in the middle of the night, and took my son from beside me, while your handmaid slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead son in my bosom. And I rose in the morning to nurse my son, and behold, he was dead. But I was looking closely at him in the morning, and behold, it was not my son whom I had borne. And the other woman said, Not so. The living is my son, and the dead is your son. And this one said, Not so. The dead is your son, and the living is my son. So they came before the king to resolve the dispute. Now, King Solomon was known to be the wisest of all men. And the king said, This one says, This is my son that lives, and your son is the dead. And the other says, Not so. Your son is the dead, and my son is the living. How are we going to figure out whose son this really belongs to? So the king said, as you can see in this picture, Fetch me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, Cut the living child in 2, and give half to the one and half to the other. And the woman whose son was the live one said to the king, for her compassion was aroused for her son, she said, O my lord, give her the living child, give it away, and by no means slay him. But the other said, Let it be neither mine nor yours. Divide it. And the king answered and said, Give her the living child. The one that said, No, let the other mother take it. And by no means slay him. She is his mother. And all of Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to do judgment. Now, you may be saying to me, Ollie, what on earth has this story got to do with the Israeli-Arab conflict? Here's why. I know it might not be a direct, exact, perfect parable, but I think the message is actually pretty clear. Why was it clear to the king and everyone that the mother said, the one that said, no, give it up, it was hers. Because she cares for this child. This child really is hers, and it's not a question of compromise over your child. It's mine. And there's no compromise. Clearly she just cared for this child. On the other hand, the one that was just being petty, childish, said, let it be neither mine nor yours, let's just split it. That was clearly an indication that she didn't have the same level of care and attachment. Let's apply this to land, the land dispute. The Arabs are saying, this is our land from the river to the sea. Don't tell me we get half of it. What are you talking about? This is my land. It's either all or nothing from the river to the sea. Because it's mine. Don't tell me, you take it. Not that we did take it in that way, but that's what they say. That's their narrative. Don't tell me you take something of mine and then I should be grateful that I get half of it back. And what do the Jews say? They say, but come on, let's split it. Let's divide it in half. What's that telling the world? It's telling the world that we don't really think it belongs to us. So we think we're sounding like the reasonable ones, but actually we're telling the world we kind of feel a bit guilty. We're not as attached as the other side are. It's such an interesting phenomenon in Jewish history that we often can learn, often in the reverse, from our enemies. Hitler said he was trying to destroy moral conscience, and he saw the Jews as bringing that to the world. He was right. He helped remind us who we are. Not thanking him for anything he did or said, but there's no doubt that seeing that such darkness could choose to attack us and focus on the Jews reminds us, it tells us, shows us what kind of light we are. So too, the Arab side that says from the river to the sea, we should be saying that as Jews. If we really believe this land belongs to us, which it does, we should be saying the entirety of the land from the river to the sea belongs to the Jewish people. And they invoke the name of God, they say Allahu Akbar, we should be invoking the name of God. We should be the ones that say, actually, we are given this land by divine right. That's the only language they understand in the Middle East. They understand the language of people that use uncompromising strength and people that invoke the name of God. Have a watch of this amazing clip. This is a clip of a Muslim that I spoke to, interviewed. He's a Muslim scholar who said he's very pro-Israel. And he said that's the language that Muslims will respect about a justification for Israel. Have a watch.
We cannot, I'm afraid, have justification of the existence of Israel based merely on archaeology. While it's undeniable, whether it's the coins or whether it's the excavation or whether it's the architecture that's becoming more and more prominent, that there was thousands of years of 3,500 years plus of Jewish presence. The real argument, and I'm sorry, it's not what Lapid says. Every time I hear Lapid speaking here, he talks about the Holocaust. The Holocaust arguably was an outcome of the lack of the existence of the State of Israel. But the Holocaust is not the justification for the State of Israel. The State of Israel is there because God guided Moses and Joshua out of the land of Egypt, from the tyranny of Pharaoh, to go and worship God freely in the land of Jacob, the land of Yaqub. And that we read in the Quran, Ya qawm idkhulu al-ardh al-muqaddasata allati kataba Allahu lakum. My friend Rick Sofer and I compare notes on this often. So I think that's the Quranic verse. So I think that's the first component, that Israelis have to recognize that their land certificate comes from God and make that argument unashamedly. But that requires Israelis to return to God. Thank you, but I just think it's the truth, and there's no other way around it. Israelis have to return to God to justify, their existence and their prosperity and the many miracles that Iran lobs rockets at them and they survive again and again. So I think you all understand what I'm getting at on the Israel side. once we have that genuine recognition in Israeli society that it is a country founded on faith and scripture, then what you have is the language with which to speak to the rest of the region. Because even an Arab atheist will say, Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow. Even an Arab atheist, after he or she sneezes, will say, Alhamdulillah. You know, even an Arab atheist, when they say goodbye to you, will say, you know, Allah yubarik fikum. It's part of Arab culture. It is what it is. Whereas when Israelis adopt that language, when Jews adopt that language in talking to the rest of their neighbors, 500 million Sunni Arabs, you'll see that suddenly Muslims will realize the truth, that is, these are the children of Israel, the children of Yaqub. There's a Jabal Musa in Egypt and in Saudi Arabia. These are children who are coming home, and they're welcome back. And I think that is the ultimate. I mean, by the way, what is Zionism? Zionism is predicated on Judaism.
This, by the way, you can find on JTV. It's a recent video we posted. It says, Muslim scholar says Muslims will respect divine justification for Jews having Israel. So this is the point. You know, I think sometimes we're nervous to just speak the plain truth because they think it will sound radical and strong. We've come to a tipping point. We have to now realize that the time for playing these games and these half-truths are up. We have to speak and learn, actually, from the other side, to speak with strength, conviction, and stating the truth, that the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people, that the Palestinian cause is a lie from beginning till end. And clearly we can see that speaking these strong truths convinces the world, because the Palestinian side have done it. Not that what they're saying is true, but they're saying it with such strength of conviction. So we have to start having a bit more faith and confidence in ourselves and in the truth itself. I think that's the lesson, one of the lessons of this story of King Solomon, and in understanding what we need to do moving forward.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.